Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I'm Kathy Gruber. And today we are talking about progress and change and sort of personal evolution and growth, because that's such a short topic. You know, I'm sure we could just toss that off in 7 or 8 minutes.
Well, maybe 2 or 3, right? We can just wrap it up right now.
Yeah, great. So go out. It'll be the lamest episode ever. But for the ADD people, it would be perfect.
It'd be perfect.
Yeah, the ADD.
Well, no, but because as we were talking this morning, I think it's this has been a theme that's kind of come up for me recently too. Of we're making changes every day, we just don't really realize it, and we're not the same person today that we were yesterday or the week before. A week ago, Kathy and I recorded some episodes, and in that time, we've both become different people than we were before. Now, we're not starkly different, right? My beard probably grew a little bit, in the time, and I don't know, there's been some changes, but I think a lot of times we either don't kind of give ourselves credit and don't really celebrate some of the changes.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're not recognizing them. And I think too often we're actually hard on ourselves, thinking that we're not making changes. And so we go into some of that self-pity and the shame and, oh, I should be doing better kind of place as well, where if we actually kind of stop and think about it, and it's kind of an interesting topic, and so we'll maybe talk about death too as part of it, because not death, but that each day we're dying a little bit, which is actually a good thing.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, it's like, did your beard grow a little bit? Probably. And sometimes we don't notice that, right? I notice my hair growing because it comes in gray, and I can see the stripes of gray, and I can see how freaking fast it grows. My nails grow like, it's a shame I can't keep good, nice. I have this strong, I can turn screws with my fingernails, but because I still do massage, I have to cut them constantly because they grow so fast. So it's stuff like that where we realize, oh, things are moving and progressing. We don't feel our hair growing. We're not aware of those things happening, of our skin regenerating and our cells renewing. We're not conscious of that, and thank God, because that would drive us crazy. Could you imagine if you could feel your hair growing?
It's a weird sensation.
Speaking about a psychedelic trip, if you're feeling your hair grow, it's like, oh. Yeah,
well, no, but even like with my beard, I can tell, like I said, if there's no reference point, right, it's harder. So like when I was just kind of growing the goatee out and it was just kind of going long, I couldn't feel it, right? And I didn't realize until I went back and looked at some of my pictures how long it got, right? I mean, it was getting pretty long. I was almost a ZZ Top, right? But it was getting kind of thin and it was fanning out, and so I kind of cut it back. But I do have a reference point on my lip, right? And so after a week or so, usually I do a little trim, once a week, every other week kind of a thing. I can start to tell, it kind of tickles me a little bit on my lip, right? So because I have a reference point, right, I can start to see it, which I think is kind of an important thing, for us to kind of highlight or think about is a lot of times, you won't probably see some of the progress unless there's something to reference it against.
This is why we have the pain scale, because I've had clients come to me for massage and I've said, what's your pain level today? 2. And then 2-3 weeks later, it's like, what's your pain level today? I'm not 2, like 9. And then the next week it's 7. And then a couple weeks later, it's 6. You can watch that progress. And unless you've picked that number, and I remember so clearly, I had a client, her back was so bad. She had to take like 45 minutes at Trader Joe's because she'd walk about 5 minutes and she'd have to lean on her cart and wait. And then she'd walk about 5 minutes and she'd have to lean on her cart and wait. She was in so much pain. Young lady, I mean, she was probably in her early 40s, and it was just killing her. And a couple months after working with me and doing some PT, she showed up to my office and she's like, I am so frustrated. And I said, oh my God, what's going on? And she goes, I could only play 10 minutes of basketball with my boys today.
Only 10 minutes.
And I went, hang on. I said, 6 months ago, you couldn't shop at Trader Joe's without stopping and leaning on the cart. And now you're frustrated that you could only play 10 minutes of basketball. I said, you couldn't walk down your driveway 6 months ago. And she goes, oh my God, you're right. And so also I think our expectations change depending on our progress. Like when I first
Yeah.
started doing trapeze, I was so frustrated that I couldn't do a certain back end trick. And now that's old hat and I'm frustrated I can't catch my double. So it's like our expectations grow as we do as well. We're not frustrated that we fall down when we walk. I mean, I am because I still do fall down occasionally, but it's like it's not like we're struggling to learn to walk. Sometimes I just tip to one side. It's like a cow. It's very weird. But it's like, as we grow and evolve, we expect more of ourselves.
Well, and I think it's an interesting point too, because it gets back to kind of the being hard on ourselves, right? Is that, are we stopping and celebrating some of those little wins, or are we being hard on ourselves? And actually, the whole irony of it, right, is we're making progress, but we may actually feel worse about ourselves because we've set our expectations unreasonably high,
Yep.
or we haven't stopped to actually celebrate.
Yep.
And I know I'm kind of guilty of that, right? And it's like, sometimes we just get into the grind, and like this morning, it's like, damn, I actually had a really good week in business this last week. Maybe I should actually stop. There were a few things that were kind of surprises to me, and it's like, I should just do one of these kind of things. Yeah, so maybe this weekend I need to spend some time actually celebrating it. Because I think, I know you shared the story before when you got your PhD.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, because that reminded me of that. So share that story again, because if people haven't heard it, it's a great one that kind of highlights what we're talking about.
Yeah, so I busted my ass on my PhD, and as I was finishing it, it was revealed to me that the school was shutting down. So I ended up like really having to finish my PhD fast. I wrote a dissertation in record time. It was brilliant, turned into several books. But the day my diploma showed up, I had gone to the post office box. I got my diploma. I brought it back to the office, and one of my favorite clients happened to be there for her massage. And I was like, do you want to be here when I open my diploma? And she goes, yeah, absolutely. So I open it up and I'm like, oh, so cool. Okay, so now I need to go do da, 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 da. And I talked about all this other schooling I wanted to do. And she goes, Kathy. And I said, what? And she goes, Jesus, you're shitting all over your PhD. Can you take 5 minutes to enjoy that you just finished a dissertation in a PhD program before you're like, okay, check and move off to the next thing? And I stopped for a sec. She totally like chided me. And I went, oh my God, you're totally right. And I realized that I wasn't at all celebrating the enormous amount of work for years that I had put in on this program, and writing a dissertation in like record time and getting it through the process and do all this stuff. I just was like, okay, yeah, check, did it, next thing. It's the person that climbs the mountain and goes, oh wait, there's a taller one, and doesn't even celebrate where they got to. They're always looking for the taller mountain. And she was such an important woman in my life. She just taught me so much just from like calling me on my own shit. But it's like we still do that. I mean, there was a gal that showed up to Silk's class probably a couple months ago now. It was her first class. She was in with more advanced people, and she was so pissed that she wasn't doing what we were doing. And she was actually kind of tantruming in class. And I'm like, girl, you just learned how to do a foot tie. You're not going to start doing all the stuff that we are. But she's like, I want to do what they're doing. And she was so angry with herself that she didn't get every skill right the first day. And it's like, that was just completely irrational. She was putting so much pressure on herself. She wasn't having fun. She was going to get herself hurt because she was trying to progress too fast. And it's like, at what point do we just have to slow down and honor where we're at?
Well, it's interesting because actually what you just said there brings up two points, right? Is like going up the mountain, and then you're like, oh, here we go. She's going to hold me accountable now too. She's got her fingers up, Capricorn.
You said two things.
So the first thing, right? So how much of the time do we kind of climb to the top of the mountain? Then we're like, oh, there's another one over there, right? And as we're climbing, as we're hiking, going up a trail, right? Usually our face is towards the hill, right? And so we're just focused on that. And luckily for me, right? I mean, I'm not in as great a shape as maybe I'd like to be, which means I need to stop every so often, right? And kind of catch my breath, especially depending on how how difficult the hike might
Yeah,
be. And
absolutely.
so the great thing about it though is it forces me to stop, and I'll usually turn around so we can see I can see where I've actually come from, right? And because if we don't do that, right, I mean, a lot of the best views are looking out from the mountain, and if we
Yeah.
spend the whole time just hiking and looking at the trail and huffing and puffing, we're not actually getting the full benefit of the journey,
Yep. Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And so it's like that when you were saying with your PhD, it's like you were doing the same thing, right? You just got into the top of this huge mountain, you weren't looking around, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a bigger mountain, I got to go tackle that right now,
Yeah, check it
right?
off the to-do list.
Yeah, check it off the to-do list. And then the other one, number two, right, was the because we talked about needing to have some sort of a reference point. And so much of the time we use others as our reference point. So we're into comparatitis, however you would say that, right? Comparing ourselves with other people.
That one, yes.
That
Comparatorditis.
that
Ooh,
comparatoritis.
comparatorditis.
Okay, let's just make up a new word.
I'm going to make up a new one. I'm going to write that one down.
Comparatoritis. Um, when it's not fair to us, it's not fair to other people necessarily either to do that. And I'm not a big golfer. I actually haven't played golf in probably 12 years now. I still have my golf clubs. When I
I'm not
moved,
a
I
big
still
golfer. Like, we weren't talking about golf. So, like, why are you telling me
well,
you're not
no,
a big
why am I
golfer?
talking
It's very
about
funny.
golf? Because golf, for purists especially,
Mm,
right? A lot of people think it's a game against other people,
right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
but it's not. For the purists in golf, it's a game against yourself,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And it shows a lot about self-integrity, because again, there's a lot of ways you can cheat, if you will, in golf, right? And so that's one reason why, especially, a lot of business people, and this comes from Japanese culture, especially because I did a lot of work with Japanese companies, they would like to take people to play golf because they wanted to see the integrity of the person.
Mm,
Are they the kind of person who's gonna cheat, gonna move the ball, gonna do some of these other things? Are they gonna be competitive and kind of in your face, like, ha ha ha, Kathy, I beat you a stroke on that
suck
last
it.
hole. Yeah, suck it. What kind of a person you actually are, because it's a game against yourself, right? Which life is kind of a game against ourselves too,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's one of those where we shouldn't be comparing with other people. We can see what other people are doing and go, hey, what Kathy's doing is pretty cool. I'd like to, try to do that too, right? I can learn from you.
Yep.
But I shouldn't get down on myself, if I can't do more than a foot tie in the silks. And believe me, I can't even do that because I've never done it, right?
Right. We can teach you. It's
Yeah,
very easy.
you can teach me, right? I mean, you guys know what you're doing, right? But it's one of those where, again, so what kind of reference points can you come up with
Mm-hmm.
that don't compare yourself necessarily to somebody else and make you feel bad
Yeah,
that you're
absolutely.
not that you're not to where they are.
Yeah. Well, and it's if you're looking to other people for inspiration, if you're looking to other people for that space of psychological and emotional safety, and one of the things that I love being in trapeze and aerial classes with beginners because it's fun for me to cheer them on and see their progress. And like, I would rather be with people who are beginners so that I can lift them up and cheer them on than people who are so good they don't need any input from me. Because I mean, we all need the support and the cheering, but it's like, I love cheering on the new people and like, like, oh my God, you're so good. Let me get a video for you. And it's like, I so thrive on that energy of helping lift people up. It's so fun for me to have that kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And and I was thinking as we were talking, we did our two things. How do we shift into more gentleness with ourselves? How do we look to people as inspiration and not, why do they have 5 million followers? I only have 5. Well, maybe they paid for them. Maybe they've been doing it longer. Maybe they have a different product than you. Maybe, it's like we never take into consideration why somebody is doing better than us or different than us, we just get mad about it. And it's like, what can you learn from them? How can we be
Well,
gentle with
and
ourselves and learn?
yeah, and I think some of it too is just trying to, like with that example of, let's say, somebody with 5 million followers versus somebody with
Hmm.
5, right? And for the most part in online businesses, people would put labels on that. They would label 5 million as good, 5 as bad. But let me ask you this, right? Which one is actually better from a business perspective? 5 million followers who don't pay you any money, or 5 that pay you $100,000 a year?
Right. Well, 100%.
Right. So the one, you're actually earning 500,000 in revenue. The other one, Zippo, or maybe some ad revenue, right? And again, a penny on a million views ain't shit,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's like, I mean, you gotta have a lot of views to make money just from the ad revenue. So, maybe one thing is to kind of quit labeling
Mm.
things, right?
Well, and that's
Of
a thought
of the good
distortion
of
from
the good or
cognitive.
bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a thought distortion from cognitive restructuring, is the labeling and the mislabeling. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that might help,
Yeah.
right? As well as if we can, with ourself, right? I think we're quick um on ourselves to kind of label things and judge ourselves.
Yep.
So what if we could, maybe stop doing that a little bit,
Hmm.
right? Quit using some of those, generic words. And I mean, this from coaching and everything else. People like to talk in generalities and distortions. And so when somebody says, well, that's bad, well, tell me more. What do you mean by bad?
Right.
Right? Because bad is such a generalization. Bad
Right.
for what? And what do you mean by bad? What is good? What is
Well,
bad?
and I was just saying, and that, bad for you might be good for me. So it's like bad and good we're labeling that. There's just an experience, and we decide if it's good or bad. And I always use the parable about the, farmer whose son breaks his arm and, blah, 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 blah. It's like, we'll see. We don't know if that's good or bad. And
Yeah.
to dovetail on you, while it's fresh in my brain, because my brain turns off a lot. Oh my God, did it go away?
No, it didn't go away. It's right there. You know exactly what you're going to say.
Oh my God, it totally disappeared. I had it. Oh, fuck.
Live and unedited, folks, right? Recorded live in front of no
Oh,
studio
I got it.
audience.
I got it. Okay, I got it. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane and know who you are. Because I mean, I'm starting to do this psychedelic coaching, right? And I see this ketamine clinic pop up in my town, and I'm like, oh my God, and that suddenly everybody's a psychedelic coach. And there was this, I did have this thought of, I missed the boat. I'm too late. How am I going to find clients? I now can't advertise because Newsom decided to veto the bill. I don't want to do anything illegal, nor do I plan on doing anything illegal. But I found over the course of the last week, the bufo ceremony I did, the priestess that did that wants to start referring to people to me for integration afterwards. The gentleman who runs the ketamine clinic, he and I are meeting next week to talk about him referring people to me for integration after the session. I was at a party where I told people what I was doing, and 5 of them went, oh, can you help us? And for the, and I had this misconception, this distorted thought that, oh, it's too late. I missed the boat. I'm not going to have any clients. I'm not, what? Stay in your lane. I'm not running a ketamine clinic. It's like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not taking 20 people to Costa Rica for a retreat. That's not what I'm doing. And it's like, I really had to sit down in this myriad pile of, all these options of what I want to do with my certification and my practice, and really think about, what do I want to do in this field? Rather than saying, oh, well, look what they're doing. They're better than me. They've been doing this longer. That's not going to be my audience. When all
No,
the I was to say, when all the we had a Massage Envy open here in town. I'm not a fan of the business. I think it single-handedly ruined the massage industry. That's a whole nother conversation. But when Massage Envy opened, I turned to my then husband and said, oh my God, they're going to put me out of business. Like, I can't compete with, open 12 hours a day, therapist on call, receptionist. Like, I can't offer that. And he goes, Kathy, that's not your audience. He said, do you think the top attorney in town is mad that there's a We the People down the street? Not your audience. Stay in your lane. And I was like, fuck yeah, you're absolutely right. 100%.
well, and like you said, I mean, for you to stay just on the integration, you're offering something in your lane that a lot of these other places don't have, right? But that's natural human behavior, right? Is again, we start to compare, we start to think about, oh my God, what's going to happen? They're going to put me out of business, and I have to keep reminding myself of this too. It's like for the services that I offer, there's other people that do it. There's multi-million-dollar companies that have a way bigger marketing budget than I do.
Mhm.
Right. So there's certain things that I can't do, but then I have to stop and ground myself and say, yeah, but Jason, don't you think there's 50 to 100 people in this whole world of 7 billion people? And okay, I know 7 billion people, not all of them are in my lane, right? In the space that I'm in, but there's millions that are.
Mhm.
So, who am I to believe or try to convince myself otherwise that there's not at least 50 to 100 people out there who would like my services?
Yep.
And for one of my products, 50 to 100 people in my program, that's very, very lucrative for me, right? That
Mhm.
provides a lot of abundance in my life.
Yep.
And so it's the same thing that you just talked about with the integration. I mean, you just, quipped off probably 20 or 30 different people who would like your services. And all
Yep.
of them aren't going to buy it necessarily, but
Yep.
what if 10 do and 20
Yep.
do? And
And then they refer their next friend. Someone just came back from a music festival who had a horrible trip or a great trip, but isn't sure what to do with it, and now they can come to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like it was just this reminding, the universe is constantly reminding, right, that it is prosperous and abundant and that it's giving us what we need in this moment. And we forget that. We get so frustrated. Hey, client canceled, my business is over. You take a fucking break. I had so many clients booked for today. I'm literally working straight through from 9:30 to 5:15 with clients straight through. And one of them canceled. He had a last minute conflict pop up. And my first thought was, shit. My second thought was, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be able to edit this episode, and I'm going to be able to do. I'm complaining about having too much to do and not enough time. But then when the time opens, I'm complaining about that, and it's like, Groover, calm your ass down. I'm a mess, Jason.
Well, beautiful mess. There we go. How about that, right?
I'm just
No, but
human.
it's human nature. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, right? It's and so can we even, maybe another thing is besides not labeling, not comparing to other people, right? Which means
Yep.
we've got to have some reference point that's different.
Yep.
And I've got an idea for that one that I'll share here too. But it's like, what if we could, actually just kind of stop
Hmm.
a little bit, right? Because again, we're so quick to kind of, go the back and the forth on, oh, I'm too busy, I don't like that, oh, now they canceled, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because one person out of your whole day canceled, right? It's like it's not going to make a difference. And can we actually just kind of stop and pause a little bit? You used to do, I don't know if you still do those daily pauses,
Every once in a while.
every so often, right? But I mean, it's like, can we just kind of stop and pause a little bit instead of worrying about so much of the stuff that's going on? And I think too, as we start to do that a little bit more, you've got to have a little bit of a pause or some sort of place to do the reflection.
Yep.
Right. It's like me turning around on the trail and looking back, even if it's only for a few seconds or a minute while I catch my breath and then I turn around and go again. We've all got to have those points in time. So you can
Yep.
put them on your calendar. If you have daily routines, you can do it as part of a daily routine, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever, right? But at some point, we need to take some time to reflect. And I think, one of the great ways to do that is one of the agreements from Don Miguel Luis's 4 agreements is
I haven't read that in so long.
do your best every day. I'm rereading it again for, I don't know, the umpteenth time now.
Yeah.
But that whole idea of just do your best every day, right? So again, how can we not beat ourselves up is, well, did you do, at least as good as you did yesterday? Did you maybe do something a little bit better than you did the day before? And celebrate that and realize that I'm making progress.
Yep.
It's like I was talking to one of my friends, and his wife got in an auto accident, and she's okay, everything's okay, but the car was totaled. Right. And as we were talking about it, he's like, a year ago I would have gotten into my shit. I would have been like, how did you not see the deer? Oh my God, I can't believe now I have to buy a new car. Now I gotta blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but I didn't do it this time.
Yeah.
He's like, all I truly was concerned with is that she was okay. And as long as she was okay, then I was okay. And he's like, I'm making progress. I'm like, yeah, that's
And
a
to
reflection
remember,
point. You're dealing with something different now
in a different
than you
way.
would have a year ago.
Yep. And progress doesn't go like that.
Mm-mm.
It's you know, there are days where I was like nailing the double and I came so close to catching it, and days where I could barely get my ass around because I was tired. I already exercised too much. My shoulder hurt. The trapeze was off. It was too cold. It was, you know, I mean, like, you have to take into account that you're not going to constantly go up. You're not going to constantly progress in a straight line. It's just not how it works. You might have that at first, and then there's those dips where you have days that are harder. No one has gone straight to the top. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And these, you know, these overnight success stories, you can be sure that before the overnight, they had weeks of shit.
Yeah, it's like, you know, because I see this all the time in music, especially, right? And it's like, you know, people take a look at, you know, again, biggest band in the world of all time, probably, right? Best-selling band of all time, the Beatles. And they kind of look at it and they think, oh man, you know, 1962, and they just took off. You know, it was like that. It was just like this solid trajectory. And it's like, did you not know about the 3 or 4 years before that they were playing dingy bars and they had to go to Germany and not make any money for quite a while, just playing in these crappy venues in Germany while they were working on everything, right? So it wasn't a straight shot for them either.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Every overnight success is usually years in the making.
Absolutely.
But we tend to forget that.
There's a great there's a great series on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us.
Yeah.
And it's all the behind the scenes, and they're so, because it's like the most popular movies: Home Alone, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Terminator, like all these movies that you think are just like these huge box office hits. And it goes behind the scenes and breaks down how hard it was to make, and how so many people quit, and how the funding stopped, and, you know, how this movie that you think, oh my God, it's one of the best, took like 7 years to make because of all these roadblocks. And now we just think of them as, oh my God, it was a star launcher for so-and-so, or, you know, it's like, those are so fun to see the struggles and the challenges that this entire group of people went through to get this one movie made that is now such a huge part of our lives. Such a fun series. All right. We should make progress.
Yes, we should.
And end this episode.
Yep. So again, we've given you some ideas, you know, to kind of take about pausing, not comparing yourself, doing your best every day.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane, having kind of a neutral, you know, reference point, right? So we're not just comparing to other people. But I've found in my life, when I take even just a few seconds to stop and reflect and feel gratitude and see the progress that I'm making, and just focus on the little things of just trying to do a little bit better each day.
Yep.
It's amazing how far we come in just a few weeks, months, you know, if we start doing it. And even again, if you may not be seeing the progress that you're hoping for because your expectations are unrealistic, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel better as you start doing this too. So
yeah. And praise where you've come, for how far you've come. You know, give yourself credit for what you have accomplished and what you have checked off your list and what you have done today. Because we're all growing every minute. We just aren't necessarily aware of it. So praise how far you've come.
Yep.
Cool. I am Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygruber.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, have a great week, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.